Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Dr. Glenn Vo. I am super excited to have one of the founders of DOC2DOC Lending. Before we get into this next episode, I'd like to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, MVP Mailhouse. Now, mailers have been around for a long time, but not any company can do direct mail for dental practices the way MVP Mailhouse does it. Check them out. Make sure you ask for a Nifty Thrifty deal. I've been using them for years and you won't be disappointed. Dr. Kenton Allen. Dr. Allen, what's up? How's it going?
Dr. Vo, thanks so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be here. This is fantastic. Thanks for inviting me to join the Nifty Thrifty dental community this morning.
Well, I'm really excited to have you on because you guys are offering something that dentists, physicians, any health professionals, we've been faced with this issue. And that is, well, if we need like a little extra help, let's say we just graduated from dental school or just got out of residency, and sometimes you kind of need a little help just to get to the next step. Or maybe you're thinking about opening a practice, things come up. We're always wondering what's the best place to get loans, right? And you guys created something that's really amazing, created by health professionals for health professionals. But before I get into that, we got to go into the origin story. Now, you are an anesthesiologist and you went through all this years of training, just like we did, to become a doctor. But then you and your partner, who's also an anesthesiologist, you guys decided to, well, get into a different business, the finance industry. Give me the background there. What caused you guys to get into this? Obviously, there's a big why behind it, but what made you get into this? And most importantly, what your folks think? They were probably thinking, man, we got this guy through school and now he wants to do something else. So let's talk about the origin story of DOC2DOC Lending.
Yeah, thanks again, Glenn. DOC2DOC, it was founded on my experience and the experience of my co-founder, Zwade Marshall, is also an anesthesiologist. And I can tell you my experience. So I came out of medical school. I went to medical school in business school at Dartmouth and came out with $250,000 worth of debt.
Wow.
And from there went on to residency in Boston, where I made about $54,000 a year for 4 years. Same time, I had a growing family. So my wife and I had 2 young kids. They were both under the age of 3 at that time. And when you did the math of what it would take to keep our personal and professional lives on track, my salary wasn't going to cut it. The rent alone in a bad part of Boston was $2,200 a month, and so I needed to supplement my salary. And when I went out to see what my options would be, I was really discouraged to find out that I was viewed as a high risk borrower. Here I had completed medical school already. Was in a well respected training program where from day one we had job offers on the table for many multiples of what I was making currently. But yet the traditional metrics that are used to judge riskiness of any borrower, when applied to me, it made me seem like the bottom of the barrel. I was the ugly duckling, and so. And my co-founder Zwade had a similar experience. And when we finished training, we kind of circled back with each other. And the more people we spoke to, the more of our peers that we spoke to, the more we learned that we weren't alone in this kind of frustration and feeling misjudged and misrepresented in the financial marketplace. And so we founded DOC2DOC Lending on the business hedge that doctors actually are more creditworthy than the marketplace allows for. And we started DOC2DOC Lending in 2017, and frankly, it didn't take long for us to prove that business hedge was true. And there's some really exciting kind of data and data points that we have now that we've been doing this for a long time that really prove that. And I'll give one piece of data, and that is at the peak of the COVID pandemic. Right when many dental practices, medical practices were really suffering because it was a Surgeon General mandate that elective procedures be halted to help cull the spread of COVID. At the peak of that, across personal lending, the consumer lending market, there was a 14% impairment rate, meaning that delinquencies, defaults, 30-day late payments. And across our entire portfolio, again, of physicians and dentists who are impacted by this pandemic, we had 0 defaults,
Wow.
0 delinquencies. We had 0 30-day late payments even. It was a pristine portfolio. And it really was accelerated the rate at which we proved that truly we are more creditworthy than kind of the collective population.
Let me touch base on that, and that's wow, that's amazing that you shared that. Did that help the company be able to maybe negotiate better rates or be accepted by more lenders with that type of data? Did you see that as a positive thing for DOC2DOC Lending?
It did. It allowed for both. So at that time, we were making loans through investments that we accepted from other doctors. So when we did a pilot program, kind of modeled ourselves off of how SoFi their startup story began.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would take investment through doctors and make loans with that money. And ultimately, the way to operate in this business is to have a pool of funds you can pull from to make your loans, as opposed to lending directly from investors. And so it was that data point that really allowed us to get our inaugural credit facility. At that time, it was a $10 million credit facility that would allow us to accelerate our growth, which for a company of our size at that point in time was really a bit of a stretch. And so it kind of accelerated our ability to grow, and caught the attention of some really important partnerships that we had. But it also, the performance of our portfolio is what allows us to offer the most competitive rates we can offer, and that's been true right from inception. That we want to help doctors achieve their personal and professional goals, and it's for me, the training period in my life, some of the most stressful components of that were financial, even above the educational, which was rigorous.
Yeah.
And so to the extent that we can ease some of that stress by making the process easy, by speaking to someone who's been through it before. We have a team of 6 doctors who speak with our borrowers if they want to speak through what they're trying to achieve. And so again, we aim to take some of that stress off the table and allow those goals to stay on track.
Well, the one of the first things that you see when you go to the DOC2DOC Lending site is there's big numbers right here. Rates as low as 8.74%, which is amazing considering what type of loans these are. Let me ask you this: what are some of the factors that come into play when getting accepted for a loan and getting the interest rate? Obviously, credit ratings is one thing, but is it based on, let's say if they're going into a residency, let's say you're going into a specialty program and the program's 3 years, or maybe the program's 2 years. Some programs, if you go into oral surgery, you're going through the medical curriculum as well, and that's up to 4 years right there. Does the time left in school, is that going to impact the rate, or what are some of the factors that impact the rates?
Yeah, really good question. So in general, we have a proprietary underwriting criteria. So we tried to deconstruct the way the way uh, the traditional banks look at things,
Hmm.
and build our own way of doing this. And we did this not just as doctors. We have some very seasoned professionals on our team who have had long careers of underwriting and assessing risk. Um, and so we take FICO off the FICO, the credit score, off the table completely, and only pull out the
Oh
components
wow.
of that we feel are directly relevant. And there are some components to that are, for example, we do look at a free cash flow, and the importance to that is that we don't want to put someone in a position where we're making a loan to them that's going to be unaffordable. That's contrary to what we're trying to achieve. But then we also include some doctor specific metrics, and very generally the way we look at this is we view really the risk with doctors of default, that they're going to stop practicing. That's certainly seems to hold true in the student loan space, that the very few folks who have trouble and default on their loans are those that choose to, or for reasons that are outside of their control, stop practicing medicine or dentistry. And so we have some proxies for predictors of kind of successful ongoing careers, and we include that in our underwriting as well. Ultimately, to generate again a rate that we think is most competitive and fair. Now, to your question, do we look at things differently based on where you are in your career?
Hmm.
We do slightly, although it doesn't necessarily impact the rate as much as the ceiling on the amount
Oh, I see.
that we will lend to someone in those years. And again, this is based on some of our own internal data and some external data sets to ensure that we don't put people in positions that instead of relieving that stress I talked about earlier, we're going to be adding to it. And so the limit for folks who are in their last year of dental school, for fourth year dental school, through any residency training periods, the max is $25,000 that will extend. Once those training period is complete, that ceiling goes to $100,000. But our approach to underwriting those loans and the risk stays consistent with some minor variability within those groups.
Well, and that makes all the sense in the world, right? I mean, obviously, the limit should go up if you're already graduated, if you're already a doctor, you already got a diploma in hand, and you just need just a little help to get by when you're actually, getting licensed, or you're actually getting that first check and whatnot, as opposed to someone who's still in school and they still have to make it through. So that makes all the sense in the world. And what I love the most about your program is you're right. If you when you apply to traditional loans, I mean, I'll remember when I was applying for like my first mortgage, right? And they were looking at all these different things, and I was like thinking to myself, like, look, I'm a doctor, I got my own practice. I mean, I got all these other things, but they really just take all that, they throw that all out of the way, and they just look at the numbers, right? They look at your credit score, they look at money, cash in, cash out, all these different things. And I love the fact that you guys understand that although you might be making 50 grand right now, right, going through the training, that once you get out of residency, you'll be able to earn the full potential of what your specialty provides. And I think that's so crucial and such a breath of fresh air. But let me ask you this. So again, for the doctors who, let's say, for example, they have a practice already and they're already practicing, and not so much that they need something to get the residency, but maybe they just started a practice and they just need just a little breathing room, right? They're pumping everything into their new practice, they're paying student loans, they're paying and they also want to start this dream here. Is Dr. Doc Lending a good resource for that type of doctor who is trying to also start his business as well?
Yeah, so in the earlier years of a career, the major purposes of our lending are around transitions, transition from point A to point B and the costs associated with setting up your life, major preparing for or going through major life events. So people who are preparing for a big mortgage loan or a practice loan, who want to shore up their FICO score to get the best rate on those big loan products. Refinancing revolving credit card debt into installment debt through our personal loan will kind of help shore up that profile. And then those life events, like marriage, kids, in some instances divorce, unfortunately, those are kind of the causes in the early phases. Now to your question directly, what about the more mature folks? And that it's a more varied use case in those years, although what we've been seeing more and more of are entrepreneurial activities, outside of practice. And speaking with a lot of these folks, I think a lot of it has to do with kind of burnout and in the medical world, some loss of autonomy of how practice works, and their ability to dictate how they practice. And so these kind of entrepreneurial outlets that are serving the purpose of kind of stimulating the mind in a different way than the medical and dental worlds, but also being an additional source of income. And in those entrepreneurial activities, almost always require some startup capital, or ongoing capital, and we've certainly been able to support people in those endeavors as well. And the conversations are really fun to hear what people are up to. It's really a pretty amazing and diverse set of use cases there.
And I always want to go back to the actual name of the company, right? DOC2DOC Lending. I mean, that's the mission. That was the vision that you and Dr. Marshall had, is, these are loans for other doctors, because you guys understand, you've been through that. You've been through it yourself, making 50 grand and having a family and living, gosh, boss. I mean, you picked a great place to try to start off, because again, I have friends who live in Boston and it gets really expensive. But again, this is a company that they understand what we're going through, and that's what I love so much about the vision. But I'm gonna have you go back a little bit, because we talked about you went through a lot of training to go through medical school and anesthesiology, and then you have all these things. So I'm gonna go back to when you told your family, when you told your wife, and you have you have a young family there, and you told your folks that, hey, I'm gonna just start, hey, medical school. I mean, it was fun and that kept me busy, but man, I just want more on my plate. So when you told them, how did your family react? Because I want to know, because again, we have so many entrepreneurs in our group. I'm an entrepreneur myself. And it's one of those things that makes this country so great. But there's always the people who are not as entrepreneur, doesn't have that spirit, and they like the lane they're in. They're always going to wonder, what has got into? So how is your family? Were they very supportive, or did they wonder if you just was studying too much and something happened?
I've been blessed with having a family that's been very supportive of everything I've tried to do. And but it hasn't stopped them from asking the question why, which is I think what you're interested in. And my wife, when I was speaking through this again, was very supportive. I think a lot of it was because she lived through it just like I did.
Yeah.
And my wife's a nurse and is very close to the medical field. And we're not just professionally but personally are very connected to medical professionals as close friends of ours, and so have seen not just the stress in our lives, but in our friends' lives. And
Yeah.
The mission behind what we do, she was fully supportive right from the outset. it wasn't an easy decision for me to make, to jump, to say I'm gonna take part of. I still practice as an anesthesiologist, but I was gonna take part of my clinical time and really develop this into a business and a company, and it's become that. We now are 26 employees and operate nationally and have originated over $50 million,
Oh, wow. It's
and
amazing.
and but it still wasn't an easy decision. And for me, there's a different type of satisfaction in looking a patient in the eye, and in my world, telling them you're going to be their guide through this major life event, which is surgery, and be there to ensure they come out on the other end and come out healthier than they went in. That's really rewarding. But there's a different type of rewarding in knowing that you've created something for that can benefit a wide range of, a huge population of people, and kind of smooth the path that you've walked for the people who are walking behind you. And that's what kind of pushed me to jump, to have an impact from a 10,000 foot view, as opposed from the kind of face to face 1 foot view. Although both have been very rewarding.
Well, I'm sure that as you have heard these stories of helping these other doctors, your peers, your colleagues, I'm sure that as you're going through this experience, you probably thought to yourself, geez, I wish there was a Doc Lending when I was going through this.
I did. I mean, we ended up compiling a lot of we ended up compiling a lot of credit card debt. That was
Yeah.
part of our solution. In my I was in my early to mid 30s at that point in my life, and was receiving some support from my parents who were approaching their retirement age, and it was humbling to need that, and so I it's like I said, it's certainly something that I feel I would have benefited from, and hope that it's been beneficial to the people who have used our product.
So, now that obviously there's so much momentum and there's going to be, I'm just so excited to offer this to my dental community because there's so many times, whether it's they're in residency or we actually have a lot of international dentists that are coming over and they're on visas and they're going through residency. And that's a real problem too. And I love the fact that you guys offer a program there. All these doctors that you're helping, in your when you and Dr. Marshall sat down and just talked this out and really you guys decided, okay, we're going to do this. This is a big why in our lives. We want to help all these other doctors. But I'm sure then when you were envisioning what this would look like, has did you envision it to be as big as it is right now, or is that something you expected, or are you guys pleasantly surprised that it's turned into what it is today?
This was our goal. This was our goal to reach as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And so certainly it is what it is today. What we had hoped it would be in 2017. We've been able to kind of learn more and adapt, and further our impact over time. You mentioned the visa program. That's something that we're really proud of.
Yeah.
You talk about the challenge for me being a U.S. citizen,
Hmm.
with that kind of financial profile and the challenges I had. Those challenges are magnified exponentially for J1, O1B, the visa holders here, who make up a significant proportion of our medical and dental communities, and are serving our communities. These challenges are even more exemplified in their lives. And so that wasn't something we realized until a couple years of operating, and now it's been live for about 2 years, where like you said, we kind of extend those same programs to those groups as well. So so we've certainly adapted, and again, in ways that we feel we can be true to our mission and reach more of the community. But we otherwise have kind of been on the path that we set out to be 6 years ago. So
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And again, just I love how you guys are adapting and really helping other folks as well. Obviously, the J1 visa. I mean, again, it's hard enough, right? It's hard enough trying to deal with these, needing extra funding and whatnot, and actually having your family here. I can only imagine going through that, and your family is somewhere else, and for the most part, unable to help out. So I love the fact that this gives these docs an opportunity to continue their training and fulfill and reach their goals and dreams. So I'm going to ask you this. You did say that you still practice, and this is a question as a doc asking another doc, who has an entrepreneurial spirit as well. Do you see yourself stepping away from medicine, or do you see that you see yourself as always having some kind of clinical days in your career? What do you see for the future for yourself?
yeah, it's a good question. I get asked that. I get asked that all the time, and no, I see myself as a doctor first. So I'll always have my clinical practice, and as DOC2DOC has grown, and our company needs and operations have grown. We've brought in some amazingly talented people who both are kind of in tune and in line with the medical and dental community, but also have expertise and knowledge sets that I don't. That for a financial technology company is really essential. So we're fortunate to have a really, really bright, robust team of folks. In addition to the doctors on our team of industry professionals. But for me personally, DOC2DOC is certainly a big part of my professional life and kind of how I see myself as a professional. But it's being a physician and anesthesiologist that's primary, and it will be.
And I think a lot of the people who are listening, who are watching, they're gonna love that as well, because at the end of the day, you're still part of the community. You still practice, but also you're doing this as well. So for those who are wanting to work with you guys, right? Whether it is a J1 visa loan, whether it's a practice loan, whether it's a loan to help them go through the transition from residency out to private practice, what's the best way? What's the best way for them to connect with you guys?
Well, the best first step would be we have a landing page here.
That's right. That's right. We do have a landing page. So go to that landing page, and then once they fill that out, does it take a long time? Does it take a while for your team to get back to them? Generally, once they come there and they do the application, again on the site it says application in under 5 minutes. Once they do the application, what does that look like afterwards? The next steps?
Yeah, so from the time an application is filled out, it's in most cases instantaneous pre-approval that you'll see, or pre-approval decision. It's in times where it's not immediate, it's certainly within 12 hours.
Okay.
We get back to you. Now, everybody who applies has the opportunity to speak with our doctor experience teams. We have a panel of 6 doctors who will speak with any applicant. Now, recognizing that not everybody will want to speak with us, it certainly isn't a requirement, but we're happy to when it's helpful, and we're happy to kind of hear of what you're trying to achieve, and like I said, be helpful wherever we can be helpful, if it's a loan or another way. But from the time that pre-approval is given there's usually one or two documents that we require to essentially prove you are who you say you are, and you're a dentist, and then the entire process from completion of the application to funding takes about 5 to 7 business days, and the variability there is usually based on how quickly the applicant moves. So there's a couple DocuSign documents that need to be signed, and we need those 2 documents as verification. But as soon as we get those, we aim to never be the rate limiting step. So yeah, from application to funding, it's usually 5 to 7 business days.
Well, that's a really easy process. And guys, just to let you know, I'm going to put that in the show notes and also the comments section as well. And again, you'll find out almost immediately, and then the funding is within a week. That's almost unheard of for most lenders out there. So guys, definitely check that out. This is a great option. And again, it's by doctors for doctors. That's what makes them different. Kenton, thank you so much for jumping on. Before we jump off here, any words of advice or any words to the Nifty Thrifty dentist community?
Well, we're just happy to be here and be a part of this community. It's really exciting what's being done within this group, and like I said, to the extent that we can be part of achieving those goals in any way, we're excited to be part of that. So Glenn, thanks so much for having me and for the conversation, and thanks for everybody for taking some time to listen.
All right, thank you so much, guys. We will check you out next time. Thanks.